Food is more than just what's on our plate. It's the places where it's grown, it's the people who grow it, and so much more. Join me, Janice Person, your host, on Grounded by the Farm every other week as we talk about the foods we love. Hey everybody, this is Janice, and this week we have Rachel Syngo. She's part of the family that runs Melon One. So Melon One, you hear it in the name. It's not a question. They grow watermelon on a scale that is pretty awesome. It's a family-run business. We're going to talk about watermelon because I've been eating and drinking all things watermelon. And I have texted her when I'm enjoying it and going, oh my gosh, have you? And she always knows exactly what I'm talking about. She knows all things watermelon. And so we're going to talk about it as a food. We're going to talk about it on the farm, and if that's okay with you.
Listen, let's dive in. I'm ready.
All right. So it's July, like it's mid-July right now. And, you know, I thought I'd come down there like in March so I could see what was going to be coming in July, and didn't get a chance. But in July, I have really benefited from the fruits of your labor and from other farmers probably in this region or who serve this region a little bit more than you. And wow, I have bought so many watermelons. I love that they're small now, right? Like,
it's true.
So tell me, is this like the busiest time of the year for watermelon farmers?
From a distribution point of the year, yes. Harvest, sales, packing, shipping, absolutely. So fun fact, July is National Watermelon Month. There's a holiday for everything now.
There's a holiday for everything, and there's swag for everything. And if you were to look at Rachel, you see watermelons in the background.
Everywhere, all the things. And I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I buy it, but so does, friends, family, neighbors. They're like, oh, I saw this at X retailer and I just had to get it for you. So
it's been trendy. It's been
trendy. It's very summertime. It's very fun. And we have a running joke at our company. When it gets a little stressful, we joke and say, watermelon time is fun time, everybody. Keep nailing it back in. But so right now we're in our, we've just come off of the 4th of July peak. So yeah, leading up to that, that's really our biggest point in the summer. So right now we're starting to transfer. We've gone through Florida. We're pretty much, wrapping up things in Georgia, and we're making our way north, which regardless of any watermelon farmer, that's essentially what's happening. We start in the southern part of the U.S. and we work our way north.
And your farm, you're based in Florida, right? But your farm kind of has, relationships and acreage at various points so you can keep harvesting longer than just Florida would allow.
Absolutely. What is different in watermelons than row crops or a lot of commodities is we rotate everywhere in order to keep the supply so you can buy them ultimately 365 days a year as a consumer. We start in Florida, we work our way further north, as I mentioned. And the beautiful thing about that is some of it is truly our acreage, our hands, we're making it all happen. And then a ton of it is partners with other family farms. So yeah, not all 100% just the Melon One team. But within that, we considered all the Melon One team for what we do. Those farmers, we buy every watermelon they can grow, and it's up to us to sell it.
So you guys have the relationships with like all the distribution, all the grocery stores, all that kind of stuff.
All that kind of stuff. We also take care of the packing. So the harvesting, the packing into bins and pallets. We have the logistics side of the business as well. So really and truly the farmers that farm with us just have to farm. We try to take everything else off their plates. Now, that's not to say that all of them only grow watermelons, but in Melon One and what we do, we like to think we're really good at it, but we try to just be really good at one thing. So we are watermelon only, seeded, seedless. We do some minis. We do some different, what in the U.S. we call exotics, right? So different flesh watermelons, but it's all just watermelon.
So different flesh. You're talking about like the yellow, orangey, whatever.
Yellow, orange, white. There are a variety of different flesh colors. In Asia, that would be a whole lot more common. Here, it's kind of, it's truly an exotic, weird thing that you only see here and there. Red is obviously the color most people are imagining when they think of the internals of a water.
That deep, deep pink, red. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. So one of the questions, I have gotten it so many times, and I've seen it in the field, so I know how it works, but we're already talking about what you're growing. seedless watermelon?
Well, like everything, we just cross them with like a porcupine, and then I don't know what people think, but let me get out ahead of it, right? So first and foremost, I'll just say the words because everybody's in ag has been afraid to talk about it in the past, which is that a watermelon is not a genetically modified organism. It is genetically engineered, meaning that it is cross-pollinated with other varieties of watermelon. So if you're not interested in this, this is where you tune out. But so there's a thing called it.
We'll get to the food in a minute.
I promise. So there's a diploid watermelon, which has 22 chromosomes. That can be essentially crossed with a tetraploid watermelon, which then has 44 chromosomes. And when I say crossed, I literally mean touching female flowers to other flowers, mixing their pollens, and that then the seed that results from that is a 33 chromosome watermelon called a triploid, which has sterile, quote unquote, seeds on the inside. So those are little white things called, in the industry, we call them pips. We don't actually even call them seeds.
Okay. So you have one with 2 on one side and you have one with 4 on the other side. And they actually go through and do the physical connecting of those 2 plants.
That's right.
And then when you plant it, you have one with 3.
That's right.
Right. So whoever you bought the seed from did that other stuff.
They did.
So you plant the one with 3 and it just naturally grows in your field so that it presents you with the kind that are seedless or that have the little teeny pips, as you called them.
Ultimately, yes. But we do, just so everyone knows, what we do is a 3-to-1 ratio. For every 3 seedless watermelons, we do plant that seeded because that vine puts off flowers that will actually attract the bees in. We still have to have a pollination process, right? So
love bees.
Without bees, exactly. All the good stuff is just gone. So in order to take care of them, we do grow seeded varieties as well. But the more popular consumer desire is seedless right now.
And it's interesting. I've been through fields where they had those and they were doing that on the seed side, right? And those other melons that they were planting were like really soft shelled. Mm-hmm. So they'd collapse if you stepped on them by accident because you're not really paying attention to those because you're trying to pick the others. And so it was really interesting. And the leaves on the plants looked different, which was pretty cool.
Yes. And a lot of that is for indicators at the farm level. Keep it all straight because there's so many commercial varieties available. But what is kind of amazing is that we can do all of that just because that's what the consumer wants right now. There's so many different flavor profiles and stuff out that to the average person picking them up out of a bin, they're like, oh, good. They grew a great watermelon. It tastes sweet. That's awesome.
Right. So there's those kinds that are really, really dark green on the outside and almost have no striping. Mm-hmm. And then there's the beautifully like stereotypical. I can still remember like these things that were massive that I couldn't imagine me being able to pick up. Right. And it like took all my strength to be able to pick it up and move it around. Huge watermelons. Now we're doing a lot more of the small ones, but do people care what it looks like on the outside? Just the inside?
Ultimately, if you did a taste test, no. But if you go to the grocery store and you're used to seeing something looking a certain way, consumer habits will tell you it kind of needs to look a certain way or they're not going to pick them up.
So in the U.S., we typically like the different colors of green striped, I'm guessing, because that's what I see most of the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Here's really important questions. I've got so many of them. It's crazy. Should you chill watermelon or serve it warm?
Okay. So me, 8th generation watermelon farmer. Yes, you chill the watermelon. Serve it cold. I have the fortunate ability to, we grow them. So if you cut one first thing in the morning, it's still cool from sitting on the ground. That's the best. So the closest you're ever going to get to that is putting it in the fridge when you get home and chilling it for, let's say, 24 hours or so. But I will say there's a little bit of a breakdown process that happens with that. So if you're taking a fruit that is not usually chilled and then putting it in the fridge and then taking it out, that back and forth will cause it to break down. So once you refrigerate it, you need to cut it and eat it like in the next couple days.
Yep.
Days or so, just to get the best experience. But heck yeah, you chill the watermelon.
So, okay, you said you cut it. You went past it so fast. So I am one of those people who cut the rind off.
I got you. Okay, so you're not a eat it as a slice kind of gal.
I don't cut it in half and then quarters and all that. I cut the rind off and then I cut it into chunks.
That's exactly how I do it. And the only reason I do it that way is because that's how my parents did it. No science. It's just what I'm used to. But
Yeah.
to a friend's house and they cut it down and they're serving it in slices. I'm like,
If you're at a picnic, you always do it in the slices, right? Because then you have something to hold on to. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we're on the same page in terms of cutting. Do you actually have a watermelon knife? Because I didn't even know those existed, and those things are freaking amazing. And if people don't know what I mean, like the serration of them is very different.
yes. So if you're, listening and you're trying to envision something, imagine like a really long bread knife is actually
Yeah, because this
kind of what you want with the serration on the bottom, kind of squared off, very long though. So you should be able to get through the whole watermelon in one foul swoop, especially if you got like some guns. So some like big muscles. But ultimately, if you don't have one of those, you are missing out. You're putting a lot of extra work in.
It really does get through the melon so fast. That it's one of the few knives that I have that is for a defined purpose. Because I used to argue with cutting watermelon, and it was, because like my knife wouldn't go all the way through, and then you're arguing. It's amazing how much easier it makes it. And I think that means I eat more watermelon.
Listen, when you think about all the things we eat, like berries, maybe you rinse them, you dry them, you eat them. There's a lot of work that goes into watermelon. You got to haul that big old thing from the store. You got to put it in your cart. You got to put it out of your cart. You got to put it back in your cart. You got to walk to your car. You got to unload it. By the time you do all that and you wash it, which, yes, folks, we should wash our produce always. Just
because you never know what all has been in contact with it in the field, in all the hands that have touched it, in the grocery store alone.
That's what I tell. So I have an 8-year-old and I'm like, who knows what that person was scratching before they thumped your watermelon? Like, you just don't know. You always should wash it. Even though you don't eat the rind, you should still wash it. So by the time you've done all that, you get home, like that thing is a labor of love. So
it deserves its own knife.
It does deserve its own knife. That's okay. I think everyone should have one. And I don't sell watermelon knives, just to be clear. I'm not in that business. I don't have
Me either. Me either, but I have given quite a few of them out.
They are a useful tool.
So, okay. So you said people go in the grocery store and they thump a watermelon. Is that the way to pick? Because that's not what I do.
Well, so I think that's kind of just what a lot of folks do. When you walk by the watermelon bin, you can see it. And I always wonder, like, what are you listening for? So we have a lot of tricks that we do at the farm. Thumping is one of them. If you have very good ears, ultimately, when you're thumping one, what you want to hear is a hollow sound. You don't want it to.
Okay.
You are looking for a hollow sound. But the way I hear and the way you hear is going to be so different. So there are way easier things to do than trying to know if you're hearing the right thumping sound. So what I tell folks is look at the belly. Is it the color of butter yellow or darker? And is it, that indicates ripeness. And that's what we all really care about, right? Is it ripe? Is it therefore going to be sweet? Beyond that, if it's not even pretty, we can eat it. Now, if you want a pretty watermelon, you want to look for something that's fully symmetrical, no bumps, bruises, weird, obscure shapes. And then the last thing is when you pick it up, it should feel heavy for its size. Like they're 92% water. If you pick it up and it feels a little light, it's probably a little dried out on the inside, and that's not what you want. So
nice tips.
Yeah.
The belly is the part that's up against the ground when it's growing, so it doesn't get the sunlight to make it as beautifully green as the rest of it. And nobody's got time to go out there and turn every watermelon every 4 days.
Goodness, no, we don't do that anyway.
It's just like pumpkins, right? Like pumpkins always have a stem. But watermelons, so many of them are oblong that they have a belly on the side. Okay. All right. We're good. So I'm tracking you so far. That nice butter or brighter yellow.
Yes.
Okay. Because I actually have an Instacart driver who brought me a really good watermelon recently. And I thought, oh, thank God. Because, man, it really kills me when I get a bad one. Because, like, if it's kind of deteriorating or something. It just makes me sad when you even cut into it. It breaks your heart.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, I gotta like step up for all the watermelon farmers out there, not even just Melon One. We pack them and ship them within 24 to 48 hours minimum. They have a 2-week shelf life, guys. So just dig through, make sure there's good rotation at the store you went to.
Yep.
There's human error and everything. So, don't assume the one on top is going to always be the best. If you're someone who may be bothered by an imperfect watermelon, if you're like, hey, I don't care if it's mealy, I don't care what it tastes like, then grab one and take your chances. Roll the dice. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm a little more perfectionist than that.
So time and get a good one.
Yeah, exactly. So watermelon, we said it was trendy, and I can't believe how trendy it is. So the first time I think the first time I met you was in Miami for a conference, but we may not be right.
I went to Miami for a conference. That happened.
We definitely were in Miami for a conference. And we're deciding where to go to dinner for the night. And this is the only time I have picked a restaurant based on watermelon on the menu.
It had a lot of watermelon on the menu.
Had a lot of watermelon on the menu. So the place, I think it was called Yardbird, and it's been on the Food Network, right?
Yeah.
But what are some of the ways you've had watermelon prepared? Because that was a little different than I had.
Yes.
What are some ways that I ought to be trying it?
Well, depending on the person, right? So there's hot and cold. So let's just go there. There are a lot of folks that like to grill it. They like to chop it up and season it and put it on the side of a hot dish, even maybe as a cold side. For me personally, that's not my favorite, but it does bring a lot of sweetness to anything. And a lot of folks contrast that with like a balsamic glaze, honey glaze, spices, cayenne pepper. There's a lot of unique ways to do that. I would say the more common variety is to put it in a salad, with a salad, or just watermelon hearts on their own with some kind of goat cheese, feta, and then maybe a really good glaze of some sort. And then my personal favorite way to do it is to drink them. And that comes in the form of maybe a cocktail, but usually a cocktail.
We've had a conversation because I was in California one time and I had the best margaritas.
Yes.
With a little jalapeno.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's like a cold and hot thing you got going. You can definitely do a margarita. There are a lot of watermelon and vodka varieties. So any of those light, liquors, tequila, vodka can go really well. And there's a lot of them out there. Like, type it in, use Google. But I would say a margarita is my favorite.
And I would bet my friend Leah, who has a blog called Farm Wife Drinks, has watermelon recipes on her site. And if not, this is officially Leah's notice to get with the program.
We'll try it. All of us, I promise.
This year, I actually saw watermelon margaritas being sold in the store, like with everything already mixed in.
Yeah.
It seems juices for watermelon is much more popular now.
Absolutely.
Is there a difference in juicing melons and fresh melons?
Oh, that's a good question. The folks that are producing the bottled juices that you're getting in the produce department, those are typically being grown for that. So a lot of times that's a seeded variety, which those tend to be sweeter. We know some folks in the industry that do that, and they grow watermelons for that purpose. But not because a lot of people are also now going in the direction of blending a watermelon juice with blueberry, or lemon is also a really popular. So in that case, if you're blending it with something else, you could ultimately create a really great business model where you could use those watermelons, like any produce. We have what we call number twos or grade outs or culture. Yeah. And you could take those and use those, which is repurposing something that, we're not necessarily throwing those out. We're selling them to roadside stands or something like that.
You don't want them to be wasted, so you try and find uses for them.
Yes, we're very, we try to really be aware of the impact that we're having. So we're not growing anything just to throw it away. There are alternate purposes kind of like that. So that is where you do start to see that difference in the bottled juice versus, let me tell you, at Melon One, we make watermelon margaritas at like every holiday. It doesn't have to be Cinco de Mayo. We just like them. I'm usually the captain of that. My team would laugh hearing this, I'm sure. But we just use right off the front, like we walk out the back door, grab one off the production line, chop it up, and just see what's going. And they're usually sweet enough, just like that. So for folks listening, the one you buy at the grocery store is just sweet enough to be able to make a really good, whether it's a recipe or a cocktail, mocktail, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, yeah. When I was a kid, it was either handed out by the slice with the rind or in balls in a basket.
Yes.
Right?
In a basket that was cut like a watermelon.
Exactly. And now it's just so exciting to see so many different ways. And I've seen some gorgeous artwork when it comes to like buffets where people do really intricate kind of designs.
Yeah, and carvings. I think watermelons are like the new pumpkins, guys. I mean, you can really get in there and do some neat contrast between a green rind, then you have a white layer for your inside, and then you have red flesh or whatever, flesh may be on the inside. So
yeah. Are they related to pumpkins?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
A watermelon's closest living relative is a cucumber, actually.
Yes.
When you get down by the rind and people say, oh, it doesn't taste good or anything, it tastes like a cucumber. No offense, cucumber growers. Doesn't taste like
cucurbits.
Yeah, they are cucurbits by definition. So,
and the rinds really look like cucumbers. So a lot of people haven't grown a watermelon in their backyard, but lots of people grow zucchini and cucumbers.
Yeah.
And so they look very similar.
That is very true. Yes. So they're not in the pumpkin family, and contrary to popular belief, they're also not related to a cantaloupe or a honeydew, even though they're all melons, right? That is what folks call them. But, we're a little different out of that bucket.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think it's been interesting to go out on farms and get them fresh from the field, right? And taste different ones. I think taste testing any food with different varieties.
Yes.
It's so much fun. Like you learn so much.
You really do. And the breeder, any watermelon breeders across, all the organizations really do a pretty phenomenal job. And for again, the average person, you may not realize it, but when you're right there tasting them side by side, it's pretty incredible how diverse a watermelon can taste. And the ones they actually breed with usually taste and look terrible. Like they're not good looking on the outside. The insides are funny, but they're just using them to breed and create that watermelon that we all kind of know and love. So there's a couple hundred varieties of watermelons, though, grown,
really
packed and shipped just in the U.S. When you consider the personal size or the minis, and then the traditional seedless. For most people are like, well, I went into my local, insert your favorite grocery store here, and I just bought a watermelon. And a lot of that has to do with growing conditions more so than even flavor. But, a watermelon that's more resilient in Florida to any virus or disease or weather conditions might be different than what you grow in Indiana, for example.
Yeah. And for your family, how many do you grow then? How many different varieties?
Probably 12 or 13 in the whole country of what we do, but we have 3 or 4 big varieties that we grow on a regular basis. Including that, 13 or so, 13, 14, 15, that would include the pollinators that we grow. So those are those seeded varieties, which sometimes are harvestable if they're big seeded watermelons. Sometimes they're more of what you described very early on, which was a small, maybe yellow or white flesh. They don't have a shippable rind, meaning it collapses. It did its purpose when it, grew a big, pretty vine to bring bees, and that was all. So we only grow a couple, and that's where consistency becomes key, right? If you are buying a Melon 1 watermelon, they can't be different at all different times of the year. So they are all pretty similar. We go with similar rind patterns. Just to try to keep up consistency for the folks who are watermelon lovers. They know what they like.
Right. So do you go with the different sizes?
We do.
Some minis?
We do have some minis. That's not a major part of our business day to day anymore. We grow a ton of traditional seedless. We grow some seeded. And then we grow another seedless variety that is what they call a firm flesh. And that's like the new innovative thing in watermelon, which, by the way, the industry hasn't changed a ton in, even 80 years. But that's been a big innovator. And we ship those directly to processors who then take them, cut them down into cubes or spears, and they go to all the same grocery stores, but also gas stations and grab and go locations because they're just a little firmer. They hold up a little longer. And then when you buy them at those places, they're not total mush from the transport and all that. So
Yeah, when you think about it now, if you go down the highway, used to when you'd stop at a truck stop or a gas station, there were choices of chocolates and candies and chips and maybe cookies or something. So many places now have watermelon in those little containers, and you think about how it gets to the place, right? So I know when I cut it up at home, and I usually put it in a big bowl or a big Ziploc bag or whatever in the refrigerator as I eat it during a couple of days, it does start getting really soft when it sits in that juice and stuff if you do it for too long. So that firm flesh allows you to do that a little bit differently.
It
Do
does.
they use that for salads too? And
A lot of that gets used in the food service world for salad.
okay.
And you'll see that in a lot of major grocery store chains. They either cut it themselves on site, or some do buy it pre-cut in a big, plastic container. Um,
Yeah.
and that again, that's just a big. You have to know how to grow them. You grow them a little different in farming technique, but ultimately, that's just a testament to the science part of breeding, right? That they can even create something like that, and know that there was a need.
Yeah, and it's such a great way to stay hydrated and stay cool, and it is like perfect for this time of year.
It is. And what I tell, again, my 8-year-old and anyone who will ever ask, watermelon's still one of those things you can eat raw. You don't have to add anything to it. You don't have to cook it. You don't have to alter it. And it's still good for you. And there's
Yeah.
things like that left. So obviously, I'm biased, but I think that watermelon, it's a very diverse thing, and it can be used pre and post workout, all of that kind of stuff. But just as a snack, you can't beat a watermelon.
So how did your family come to concentrate so much on watermelon?
Oh, we were just born this way. No, I'm kidding. So in my family, my great grandfather was farming in South Georgia. And as time went on, he grew cotton, he grew sweet potatoes, and he grew watermelon. There's a lot of variations of the story, right? As tall tales slowly begin to get told. But at a certain point, watermelon was a crop that he could actually make money on. Anyone who's been in farming long enough knows it's a lot easier to lose it keep it. So at a certain point, he had heard about the market in Florida being higher, and he came down to South Florida, which is really where my family all still is. And so
You're on the Gulf side, not on the Atlantic.
we are, yes, we're on the West Coast, and in the LaBelle area of Florida is where he slowly came down. At that point, his sons were off in the Army and in the Navy, and by the time they came home, his family had up and moved to Florida. So they came down and started farming. And even at that time, they still did grow other things. Watermelon was just a large crop for them. But as my father and my uncles continued to farm, they still grew cabbage and eggplants and a variety of different other produce department things, though, right? We've
Yeah.
been direct row crop kind of folks. We've never gone that route. But watermelon really became a signature. And as the world continued to evolve, and so did my family and the business and the need, we got away from just farming and into the sales side. So that's where Melon One really became founded. So my father is one of the owners of Melon One, but there are two other partners, one from the distribution sales side, originally from New York, another one from South Carolina, who's also been in the sales and also the farming, and they also have some greenhouses down side. So all together, they kind of form one mega watermelon company. I said that's all we do. We do it year round. We do it the best we absolutely can, but we're not in anything else. We just grow, pack, and ship the best watermelons we can.
So how often are you guys planting and harvesting? Like for how long? Do you start planting when, and how long does it go? And same with harvest.
Well, so the way it starts is, you'll start your land prep. Watermelons require a decent amount of prep to the land. So like a lot of things. I'll talk about maybe our Florida season to give you a timeline, but you'll start that at the end of the year, the last couple months of the year. And then as January rolls around, you start planting, and you plant slowly and staggered so that you can continue that harvest on through your state's season. So we'll plant over a 4 or 5 week period. And then from the time we plant with a transplant, so we're not pushing little seeds in the ground. We've already had the seeds, gone to a greenhouse, and they've grown those into a 2 or 3 inch tall plant. So
Okay.
we're hand planting in the ground though. So really and truly, we're riding what we call planters, which is a pull behind trailer on a tractor with a big wheel that's poking holes. We use plastic mulch, and it's poking a 3-inch hole in the ground, and we're putting plants in them. I mean, there is no way to do it automatically.
This is not the job for the clumsy people in the
No, not at all. Obviously, so you plant, and then in South Florida down here, it takes about 100 days from that day that you plant until you cut your first watermelon. So flash forward to April, and now it's time to get into harvest. So we will harvest the same way we planted in the same order. We can go back to a watermelon plant. It's really not unheard of to do that 3 or 4 times. In Georgia right now, we have farms where we're on their 5th cut. So
Oh, wow.
if your plant's healthy, they will keep producing fruit for a significant amount of times. Any one plant puts off 2 on the low end to 8 on the high end watermelons. So,
and I think I've seen video of you guys harvesting.
Oh, yeah, that's also by hand. So there's just not a lot of automation in watermelons. It takes a lot of hands in the process. We cut them early in the morning before the dew's even 100% burned off. Our team of cutters goes through. They cut a watermelon off the vine and they flip it over so that yellow belly is facing up. And then school buses come drive through our farms, which have been hollowed out and covered with padding and plastic, but there's no seats left. A lot of times there's no roofs left. And then we have loaders who are
convertibles.
They're convertible school buses. And then we have folks tossing watermelons up into them and, gently setting them down. I mean, they're heavy, but they are breakable. So we treat them with care. And then they take a ride for a few miles down the road to our packing shed. We unpack them. We repack them by the size that they are. So like if you went to a big box store, like your Costco's, Sam's Clubs, BJ's, they want big watermelons, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll assume when you go to maybe a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's, they generally want a smaller watermelon. So you divide them out by 3 different sizes. Then we ship them. And then they go to a distribution center and then eventually to your grocery store. So hand planted, hand harvested, and hand packed. If anyone has a really good plan for that, we're listening. It's a lot of hard work.
It's a lot of hard work. And y'all have had a lot of employees for a fairly long time.
Yes.
And some that come back year after year, but may not work year round.
That's right. So on the harvest side, we have a lot of teams that work with us year after year, but again, not year round. Each harvest crew will have between 75 and 150 people on it, depending on their size. This year we have 5 of them. And they go, to all of our farms. I added it up before this call, just so I would know the exact number. We have 27 farms. And that does not mean individual pieces of land, because we got way more than that. But we have 27 farmers, including ourselves.
Wow.
Us. And then we do also grow in Mexico and in Central America. So 29 total farmers, and those harvest crews, I'm telling you, the work they do is invaluable, not only to what we do, obviously, but to the whole food supply chain. So they deserve all of our praise.
Yeah. And in Florida, there's so many different crops for them to work on. So their crews actually plan how they're going to migrate in different areas and all of that kind of stuff, or what different crops they're going to be in and things like that, which is a lot of fun. So those off-season crops, in the winter months when you may see a watermelon, it may still be a Melon One. Does Melon One put like stickers? Would I recognize a Melon One, or is it on the box, or is it?
So watermelons are funky because they're not branded like Driscoll strawberries and Dole pineapples. We like to think we're the Dole of the watermelon. But ultimately, we do. We have a unique label. So it is a large black label that is on the watermelons. It's about 3 inches big, and it has our Melon One logo in the center. And then we always put the state in which it came from. So in country of origin labeling, big deal in produce. We also narrow it down to Florida, Georgia, Kentucky,
Oh, nice.
South Carolina. So really where it came from. And then if anyone, and a lot of people are, it's amazing how many people want to know where their food comes from. I assume we're listening right now, but they can then go to our website, which is on the label, and you can see which farmers farm in South Carolina. So you can narrow down the folks who are really growing the food you're eating.
That's very cool. Yeah. How do you guys keep all those connections going? So you're working with the farmers, right? Keep farmers happy so they keep growing for you. And then you're having to work with like the distributors and places. And do you actually work with like the grocery chains? Like, do you just work with distributors or do you go all the way to the grocery chains too? Because big grocery chains, I mean, they'd be worth some time, right?
Absolutely. We work directly with grocery chains. There's only a couple of true distributors that we still work with.
Okay.
We go direct to retail in a lot of cases. And with that said, yes, we have an entire team in place that just does retail relations, basically. I mean, our job as Melon One is to fight for the highest possible price we can get, because that goes right back to the grower. That's what keeps them growing. It's what keeps them in business. And nobody gets in farming to, make it rich, right? But you should be paid a fair wage for what you're doing. And then on the other side, the retailer's job is to get it for the lowest possible price so that they can sell as many as they possibly can and be competitive in their market. So we walk that really fine line in between that. We think that we do a good job at it. I think they would probably say we do a good job at it. They're not kicking us out anyway. And really that has to happen because you have to form a bit of a relationship. So retail relationships are important, but ultimately our job is to work for the farmers. That is what we do every day in every conversation. Even me being on here right now, I hope that makes more people want to go buy watermelon and keeping the demand high so that all of our farmers can keep farming year round as much as they would like.
Nice. Did I miss anything important I was supposed to ask you?
I don't know I think hopefully we've answered a lot of good questions about how to eat it. Where does it come from? How do we grow it? Let me just say there could be seeds in a seedless watermelon. That's a common question. It's just those small seed coatings, those things I like to call pips. That's what they call them in the biz. Sometimes they can harden up and turn black. We're very sorry. It does happen.
They are biological products, right?
We did not go in and remove their ability to do that. So because of that, they could happen. You'll just have to, pick around them. We put it on our label. They do contain an occasional seed. And sometimes in stressful environments, that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's a high drought year or something, you're more likely to see seeds.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense.
For that reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so last thing, how can they find Melon One? Do you guys have recipes or what do you have on your websites or social media channels?
Awesome. We have all of it. So we have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram, and we have a Twitter, and then we have a website. So the website is melon1.com. That is also the same for our Facebook, melon1.com. Unbelievably, someone had taken that on Instagram and Twitter. So we are official melon1.com. And, we have a lot of stories and testimonials from folks who buy our watermelons. We have a lot of stories about the folks growing your watermelons, the farming team. We post pretty frequently across all platforms, lots of recipes, lots of picking the watermelon out of the bin recommendations. And if there's anything you want to see, we're a very open book. There's no secrets in what we do. So if you want to reach out, engage with us, we'll engage back, I promise.
I'll make sure I include all that in the show notes so if somebody's listening in an app, they can just click on it. They don't have to type that whole long URL and remember which one was official and which wasn't.
Oh, I know. Goodness.
Well, I really appreciate your joining us. And I hope this was fun. You said it was the first time you've done a podcast. So hopefully it was okay.
It was definitely okay. Now I'm just, maybe I'll start my own podcast. I hear people could do that.
It's not that hard, right?
Awesome. Folks enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, Rachel.
All right. Thanks, Janice.